absentee owner list, which is one that we went over yesterday, right? Is it typically harder to wholesale if there's a resident in place? Because people can't just do a fix and flip. They will need to keep the current tenant, correct?
Yeah.
Yes and no, right? So yes, they need to keep the current tenant.
No, you only need to keep the current tenant if they're performing according to the lease. Anytime you mail to an absentee owner type of list and you say, hey, I want to buy your rental house or whatever, obviously you're always going to ask, condition and what list of deferred maintenance things need to be done. But hey, you got a tenant in there, they're paying you $1,000. Cool. What are the terms of that lease? I'm not sure. I have to go look it up. Okay, can you send me a copy of the lease?
Yeah.
Because if you don't get a copy of the lease, theoretically speaking, the tenant can put anything in writing and then you're going to have to adhere to it. So from contract, from lead to contract, you want to build up, in addition to your contract information with the seller, you want to build up the potential contract or lingering contract between what would be you and the tenant. Right? You could always do a cash for keys situation if they're behind, and I tell people this all the time. I don't care what the terms are. I don't care, how late they are or their pay history, but I need a copy of whatever's in writing. Because we've gotten the shit end of the stick when they say there's nothing in writing, and then
the tenant finds something miraculously, right?
Or, you come to find out that they agreed to, owner finance the house to them for half of what you bought it for, and now you're screwed, right? So, yes, it's easy to sell a vacant house. Easier to sell a vacant house. But you can sell a rented property all the time. I mean, assuming that it's not a 5-year lease with no rental increases, right? I mean, most people do 6 to 12-month leases, maybe even 18-month leases. So as long as you get a copy of whatever's in writing, I think you're fine.
And a lot of times, if that's a good standing tenant, there are some buyers that actually take that right on over, right?
So
or you, right? When you're talking on the acquisition side, when you're talking to them, if that tenant's been in place for a while and they're pretty much a live-in, they're used to the rent increases, right? There might not be a need to kick them out. So, don't use it as a fear point, right? Just use it as another negotiation tactic when you're looking at that property, right? You have to review it based on those conditions. So, like he said, make sure you try to get a copy of the lease and literally compare it to what other deals are in the neighborhood, right? Like, what are your comps? If it's significantly below market rent, that tenant's going to have to go one way or another. So use it into your negotiation.